I've worked with the energy industry now for almost 50 years. And very often it's gone through cycles of looking at things like environmental impact assessment or sort of climate change and these sorts of things. When you talk to people, CEOs and so on, in the energy sector now, you'll find that they're much more comfortable talking about climate and about the circular economy and all these good things. They'll talk about the energy transition, energy transformations and so on. Most of them have not got a clue of what's coming at them. And I would say that in 10 to 15 years, we're going to look at a transformed landscape. So a lot of the disruption, the transformation, is going to come from the service component of what this sector does, not simply from the technology, but the technology is going to disrupt things profoundly as well. The idea of the triple bottom line, and it's now 30 years old, was that any business needed not only to think about the financial side of what they do, the financial bottom line and so on, making a profit in particular. They needed to think about the economic dimensions of what they were doing. They needed to think about the social dimensions of what they were doing. And critically, they also needed to think about the environmental side. And there have been plenty of examples of companies moving in that direction, and quite successfully. So, but one of the things that really worried me a few years back was that what I saw was that people were starting in senior roles in business to see this as a trade-off game. In a sense, we make a profit, so that's the economic piece done. Well, no, it's not. There's a much bigger economic agenda out there. We provide customers, consumers with what they want, and we employ people, so that's the social side. That's a tick in that box. Well, no, it isn't. There's a much bigger agenda there. Shame about the environment. Well, we wish we could have done better on that, but given everything else we're doing. And that trade-off was never part of the basic thinking or the proposition. The idea was the triple bottom line was around business and financial markets increasingly delivering integrated solutions across those three different dimensions. Since then, you've had ESG, so environment, social, governance. I've always felt that the governance, the political side, the educational side, sat at the heart of the triple bottom line. But ESG has just taken off, but it's been so successful now, you find the pushback. And that to me is actually an incredibly encouraging sign, because it shows that what we're doing as a movement, increasingly as an industry, is having a big implication, a big set of, it's being seen to be really significant for people with sunk capital, vested interests, so that they're not surprisingly pushing back. So I'm perhaps a little unusual in seeing that this pushback is a really, really positive indicator of our success, but I think it is. One of the phrases, one of the terms that you hear CEOs and other business leaders increasingly use is regenerative capitalism. So if you look at the CEO of Walmart, for example, Doug McMillan there has talked about regenerative agriculture. So this is a term that is coming up the priority list, the agenda for senior business leaders. Most of them don't, again, understand what they're talking about. Capitalism is intrinsically, by its very nature, degenerative. It may be environmental, it may be social, it may be economic or whatever, but it has a problem. So if you're going to talk about regenerative capitalism, something very different is going to be required. Can individual CEOs, can individual businesses do this on their own? Absolutely not. They can innovate, they can pioneer, they can come up with some of the solutions. But unless and until we reconfigure markets to incentivize and reward people for doing the right thing, whether it's circularity or whether it's regeneration or whatever, this is not going to happen fast enough. It's not going to happen on the scale that we need. So governments, I'm afraid, are going to be incredibly important in all of this. If you have an effective government, it's going to potentially work quite well. If you don't, regenerative capitalism is going to continuously remain out of reach. Romania pioneered in oil. And the question now is whether it can also pioneer and be part of the coming energy transformation. I've worked in what we now call sustainability for 50 years. I think we will see more change in the next 15 years than in the last 50. And it's not going to be particularly comfortable because it is going to be disruptive. So the question for any country, for any economy, for any business is going to be, do you want to be part of this energy transition, or are you happy to be swept aside as it comes crashing through? Because the one thing we can be absolutely certain about, it's coming. What role do you want to play in that future?